some of it, though I guess my upbringing was kind of unusual in that, like, first, I mean, obviously, like, I was an immigrant, and then on top of that, like, even when I was still in Russia in kindergarten, I was the sort of person who kind of cared more about just like solving math problems on my own than talking to anyone else. So I always felt like I had this kind of more distance from other people, I guess, and so in terms of like what drove my political interests, hmm. I definitely feel like I was like interested in a lot of those things, like at least since high school or maybe a little bit before that. And then sometime around like 2010 and 2011, I just like discovered a lot of like things that people were writing and saying on the internet, and learned a lot about like basically everything that Bitcoin people were talking about,
Yeah.
right? Like they were talking about technology, talking about open source software, talking about political ideas, talking about economics, and like Bitcoin back then was this like really interesting community that like combines together all of those things.
Do you think that your libertarian, let's say, approach became more moderate in time, or is just like you are speaking less about these matters because you are focusing more on developing Ethereum and being the evangelist of Ethereum?
I mean, I definitely became more moderate in some things, but I guess no, it's I guess kind of the like there's two questions there. Like one question
Sure.
is like in what way my political views have changed over time, and then the other question is like I guess like why do I not talk about like mainstream political issues more? Um, I get, yeah, for the first one, like it does. There's definitely like specific things that I've gotten more moderate on as I've just like learned all of the different sides of every issue over time. And then there's like obviously things that I still believe strongly. In terms of I guess why I tend to, I mean, I don't feel like I don't think I just talk about technology, right? Like, and I obviously talk a lot about Ethereum, but then like in places like my blog, I always
Yep.
like I do talk about some, bigger economic issues and like how to like how to make decentralized governance work and all of these different things. It's definitely like my approach is definitely kind of like more abstract. Like talk about principles and I don't like talk about like Democratic Party bad or like
Sure.
Russia bad or whoever else bad and like these the and that's I guess in part because I feel like my expertise is kind of like the strongest in the things that like in these kind of more theoretical ideas of like if we just like if we don't start from the point of view of like thinking about how like very specific things in the world are wrong and just start from like we have these tools, like how do we make the best possible way to organize ourselves with these tools, then that's the area where like I've thought about the most, and then thinking about like how the different approaches have worked and not worked in the crypto space. That's where like, it's where I feel like I have the best ability to say things that other people have not said yet, I guess. But at the same time, like I do think that it's important for the crypto space to like actually engage with the big real world, and because like maybe for the first 10 years the Ethereum community was growing more slowly, right? Yeah, or it was or at least it was growing quickly, but it was small.
Sure.
Yeah, so it was like when you're very small, like it doesn't even necessarily make sense to kind of like decide to just like have opinions on like all kinds of things that you can't even affect. But now cryptocurrency is bigger, and it's like it's going to be a part of what the world looks like in the 21st century. So I think like it's possible that like both myself and the like Ethereum and crypto community in general like will start engaging with those kinds of issues more over time.
Do you see yourself more like a tech guy or a philosopher?
Some of both. I think, like, I definitely combine like the different aspects of things, right? Like I talk about cryptography, like talk about math, talk about economics, talk about like philosophy and like what decentralization and centralization mean, and like what kinds of decentralization are useful in what ways, and all of these bigger topics. I guess I definitely don't like kind of like putting myself into a box, because like it feels like the kinds of things that we're doing are just so fundamentally new.
Where are you more comfortable, like being a philosopher or a tech guy? Because
Can I say being a tech philosopher?
obviously,
Yeah, no.
and now it's your term. It's like you decided
I'm a tech philosopher. Great, we created the term.
Is this the first time you are saying you're a tech philosopher?
I think so.
Well, this is good. We have a headline.
Okay, good. Yeah, you assigned me to a profession. This is okay.
Because basically, if you think about it, the tech industry is more has a more aggressive part, while the philosophy part is more like we get around the table and we discuss ideas. And if my ideas are good, that doesn't mean your ideas are bad.
There was this ancient quote, I forget who it was from, I think maybe Aristotle or like one of the Romans and Greeks, like it said something like, a society that separates its scholars from its warriors will have like bad scholarship and bad fighting.
That sounds like Aristotle.
Right, yeah.
That could be.
Yeah, no, it's, I guess I definitely feel like I really believe that. Like I mean, even just myself, like I don't see myself as being like just a kind of thinking person or just a doing person. Like I'm a, like I let my thinking kind of directly inform the doing, and that's definitely not how the world normally works, right? Like normally, like you have like, you have people in the media, and like often they don't really understand like the details of like the challenges of what it takes to actually be a doer, and like they end up like criticizing things from the sidelines. But then on the other side, you have business people or like politicians, and they they do things, but they don't actually like think hard about like what kind of world are they actually trying to create through their actions.
Do we need more tech philosophers in crypto?
I think we absolutely do. I think we need more kind of like, I guess, hybrid kind of like scholar warriors in the world in general. And I mean, I think in the internet and crypto, like one of the good things, obviously, is that the space is peaceful. Like, we don't fight war with like literal guns and bombs that hurt people, but we still have tools that can have a big impact on the world.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to move a little bit to the early history of Ethereum. And I know you are for the first time in Romania, and this is like your first long format interview. But I know you've met many Romanians in crypto. What's the most interesting memory that you have from the Bitcoin magazine period? How important was Mihai Alisiev for for like the development of Ethereum, speaking about the roots of the entire, let's say, idea and moving forward?
Mihai was definitely really important in just making Bitcoin magazine possible, right? Like he started the thing, he reached out to me, he hired me, he did all the logistics, he did a huge amount of really hard work for 2 years. So it was like just the fact that he was willing to kind of sink his life into such a really uncertain space at the time when there was almost nobody in it, I think is like, it's very impressive of him. And it's like he was the one that made kind of Bitcoin magazine and like really my deeper entry into the Bitcoin space possible. And then like Bitcoin magazine itself kind of grew over time, right? Like for the first year it was a website, then we had a magazine, and then in 2013 at the end of June I went to Spain and I saw Mihai for the first time. I just remember opening the door to this like small, I think it was either an Airbnb or some kind of apartment in Barcelona, and like actually seeing him. Yeah, and it was like that was the time when in my head the crypto space was not quite real yet, right? Like it was just people that you see on the internet. And oh wow, this internet person that has been such a big part of my life for 2 years actually has a face, and that's amazing. And then from there I started getting to know much more of the crypto community, and then went to Israel, and that's where I got to know the colored coins and Mastercoin people, and that's when I started thinking about these kind of like blockchain beyond Bitcoin issues much more deeply. And Ethereum came soon after that, and then Mihai obviously just like jumped into Ethereum immediately.
Are you still in contact with Mihai?
Yeah, I do. I am.
That's great. So is it safe to, let's say that Ethereum has some kind of Romanian flavor in a way or another?
I guess it does, yeah.
Gotcha. When you guys were in Zug in Switzerland, have you had the sentiment of writing history? When you were there, was it more like a game between, let's say, young people, or you had a strong feeling that we might write fucking history as we speak?
That was definitely the time when we were realizing for the first time that we were doing something that might be significant. When I was writing the white paper, like totally not, right? When I was writing the white paper, I was just expecting, okay, this is a project, it might go somewhere, we'll work on it for a few months, and then it'll go back to university. And then I think one of the big turning points was in Miami when we had there was that Bitcoin conference, and we revealed the project for the first time, and we just saw like the hundreds of people being interested, and like everyone excitedly listening to the presentation, and lots of people asking us questions. And that's when we realized that this is something really big for the crypto space. And then over time, it definitely became more and more clear that this could be a way in which the crypto space just becomes more important for the world. I guess like in Switzerland, in particular, like it was definitely this kind of like big home for Ethereum at the time when everything was just like starting to form, right? Like back when the team was very small, it was this house, and everyone was coming in, everyone was just working in the house together, first the project was starting to form, then we had the sale, and we got like $18 million. This like just amounts of money that we could not imagine we would get 6 months before.
So it was a surprise.
It was a surprise, and then like after that, the really big teams that were being formed. So it definitely felt more and more like over time. Like first like this is just a tiny project, we'll get it done quickly. Then this is something big for the crypto space, and then this is something like that could be very big even beyond the crypto space.
How many people were there in Switzerland when you were like coding pre-ICO? Are we speaking about 30 or 10?
10.
10.
Yeah, no, it was. Like even from the beginning, Ethereum was a very distributed project. But even at the beginning, like the number of full-time people was definitely less than 30. It was, there were some people in Switzerland, some people in I think Berlin, some in Amsterdam, some in the U.S. It was.
How have you met? Who put the team together? I mean, as in like now it's impossible to imagine that probably the future of the internet as we know it was like came together. Like how was the entire process? I'm trying to understand.
So I knew Mihai from before.
Okay.
I met Anthony Diorio a couple of months before.
Gotcha.
Gav Wood and Jeffrey Wilkie just reached out to me by email.
Okay.
I think Gav was like a friend of one of the people who I sent the white paper to.
Okay.
And then Jeff was like part of the Mastercoin team, and so he was following the space closely. Then Charles Hoskinson was someone Anthony Diorio knew.
Okay.
Joe Lubin was also someone Anthony Diorio knew. So it was Amir Shatrit was someone I only knew for like 1 month before. So no, most of the people I just did not know before, and except like basically Mihai.
How was the atmosphere in the house? As in, you were coding. That's pretty straight to the point.
Right.
But when you were discussing about like the current state of things, the future, how were like, it was like a competition of ideas. It was like tech philosophers coming together. I'm wondering how was the feeling?
It was definitely an interesting mix of just all kinds of different people coming together, right? Like there were the developers, there were artists, and just like I guess what you could call business people. Just very different kinds of people with very different mindsets coming together. It was interesting.
In late 2015, you sold 500,000 Ethereum to Mike Novogratz.
Right.
For like 99 cents or something like that. Tell me like the story of the transaction, which, well, would now worth almost $2 billion.
I mean, I think like I think like we in the foundation at the time, right? We had almost no fiat left and almost no Bitcoin left. All we had was the 3 million ETH, right?
Okay.
And so the foundation at the time like had almost nothing, and like we needed to survive. We needed to continue developing Ethereum, and the markets were not mature yet, right? So we were very frantically just looking for individuals who wanted to buy like ETH so that we could continue funding the team. And I think I forget exactly how we reached out to Mike Novogratz. Like we might have reached out to him, or maybe Joe reached out to him, or maybe he reached out to us. But then he wanted to buy some Ether, and like we were happy to sell some Ether because like on the one hand, it was a very good deal for Mike Novogratz, and it was a very good deal for the other people that bought Ether, like institutional at the time. But at the same time, like those transactions helped the Ethereum Foundation survive, right? If they did not happen, then the Ethereum Foundation would have had to just fire all of its people because it didn't have any money left. So it was a huge win for them, and it was a huge win for Ethereum as well.
So by the end of the day, it was a good deal.
Yeah, I think so.
Is it true that you've discussed the price and after that you changed the price to 99 cents because the market was like better for Ethereum? Because right now Mike's when he's like referring to that transaction was like, I was discussing with Vitalik about an amount, and after that, because he was lagging like the decision, he's saying like Vitalik was like, okay, now because you were late to the party, the price has changed.
It was because the price on the secondary markets had gone up, right?
Gotcha.
Like, yeah, we were just benchmarking against like the secondary markets that existed then.
Okay. You made clear that Ethereum Foundation sold at $1,200 like back years ago in order to have liquidity for grants and payrolls and everything. After seeing the amount of hate you and Ethereum received because of that move, aren't we all from crypto a little crazy when we expect for people who build things not to sell no matter the market condition? I mean, isn't this like a kind of entitlement, of stupid entitlement, when retail investor says like, I should get all the profits, and the people who work for those projects probably should get nothing or very small bits.
No, there's lots of people that have that mentality, right? Like, I mean, even the decision to like have the like 12 million coin developer pre-mine in there, like that was really controversial at the time, right? Like now I think like Ethereum's pre-mine is like almost zero compared to all of the modern ones, right? That like go up to like say 50 or 60% get given to a really tiny group.
Exactly.
But back then, like the dominant culture was it's like Bitcoin, like 0%, like nothing goes to developers, 100% goes to whoever the miners were at the time, and that's and then with selling, it's again, some of like our decision to the decision to sell, I think, was like clearly completely necessary, right? Like we got $100 million and we were able to like kickstart the Stanford, I think, Center for Blockchain Research.
Exactly.
With those other projects. We were able to kickstart Prismatic, Lighthouse, like all of these companies that are now building the proof of stake and sharding. We were able to give grants to all these academic groups, increase the size of our team, just like do all of these things. And like if we did not do all of those things, Ethereum would not be where it is today. But I think another part of it also is that like there definitely is this culture in cryptocurrencies that just like where people say that like it's virtuous to be 100% in crypto because it's virtuous to 100% believe crypto, and believe crypto will definitely succeed. And like people have definitely yelled at me, right, because I never believed in that culture, right? Like I always said that like, hey guys, there's a big chance this is not going to work. And then like, I said this publicly, right? When, people on like interviews like these ask me like, hey, are you certain that Ethereum is going to change the world? Like, no, I mean, there's a big chance it's going to fail and do nothing. But like, that doesn't mean it's not worth doing, right? Like a project that has a 90% chance of doing nothing and, you know, becoming a complete joke that everyone laughs about, and a 10% chance of like completely creating a better way of you know, organizing the world economy. That's like still something really worth 100 people putting their lives into. And I guess that's something that's like true, but also very hard for people, very hard to communicate to people, right? Like it's this idea that of like both being like very enthusiastic and excited about something, but at the same time like knowing that, you know, it's like you can never be 100% certain of anything.
Obviously.
And yeah, like it's an experiment. Like it's it definitely is like it is an attitude that I think like some people understand it, but a lot of people don't. And the problem with like I think the problem that this kind of like you have to be 100% certain attitude in crypto leads to is like it does end up like prices do go down, right? And it can end up to like very bad things happening when people put all their money in crypto and then like, you know, the price goes down and then people are like WTF and they you know, their 30-month runway turns into a 3-month runway and like their entire project breaks. So it's, and then, you know, you have like these kind of like crazy people who say like, there was one person a year ago who like even like said on Twitter that like, hey, you know, he lied to his bank about like taking out like what purpose he was taking out a loan for, and he actually took out a loan and used that loan to buy Bitcoin. And I was like, okay, you know, like he was right, but he could have been wrong.
Obviously.
Yeah, and like if he was wrong, then, you know, he could have easily gotten into big trouble, right? So, like I guess I definitely want to kind of like have this culture of you know, both being like we should be excited about the the real potential that crypto has, and like I think the fact that it already is really changing a lot of things, but you know, at the same time, like, you know, be realistic and just you know that like all things, this is an experiment, right? But
Sure.
yeah.
Do you think that this kind of greed or let's say bad positioning when it comes to the retail investor, is it like human nature, or is this something we can solve with education?
I think there definitely is a human nature aspect to it, right? Like, I mean, like markets are even like people having this kind of like 100% overconfidence in markets, like that's not even that bad, right? Like, you know, if you look at like, you know, 80 years ago, people were 100% overconfident that like their nation and their race is the best one in the world, and they started a war, and right, like that's much worse than people going bankrupt. So, I think like there definitely is all of these things are human nature, but you know, at the same time, like I think, you know, human nature is malleable, and like, you know, I think there is education that we can do, and like things are already better now than they were before, and I think things can be better in the future than they are today. So
That's an optimistic perspective on the future, which is good.
Yeah.
We want like we want the innovators and the visionaries to have an optimistic perspective on the future, because I think this is one problem we have in crypto. There are many visionaries or leaders or whatever you want to call them, and they are like pretty pessimistic about the future. They are like, we need to create this because without us the whole world will fall down, and I don't know if that's a good perspective on
That's